And for the 13th time ever, we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Reviewing Network Live, and a special welcome to those of you watching on the main Reviewing Network YouTube channel. This is a special free preview episode of the Reviewing Network Live. This is the show I do every Sunday night, and it shows up on Monday morning for most of you over on the other channel, the Reviewing Network Live, which you can go ahead and hit the subscribe button right now if you want to go ahead and watch those episodes there as well once you're done with this one here. And this free preview episode is basically here to give you a taste of what we do on the main show. If you haven't seen our show over on the other channel, this is your chance to see what we've been doing over there. And you're going to get a lot of stories that we're going to talk about here, because there was a big news week for really a very bizarre reason. It was mostly because, I think it's mostly because the strikes have just ended, so that means that people are still making deals even though we're in Thanksgiving week. Usually Thanksgiving week is not this busy, but there's a lot of stories to cover here. I've got at least 10 stories here to talk about, and add an 11th story too, because I decided to put this week's reviews for the two movies that I saw this week, and I decided to not do a talking about the movies episode. I'm going to put them in this right here in this show, so that's going to be an added bonus here. Plus, we've got the weekend box office, we've got some recommendations for the week, along with some other things, some other interesting little things that I found over the course of the week that I feel like I should bring up on here. But we've got a packed show, and so, for those of you who have not seen us for the first time, and are watching this for the first time, I should say, this is the Reviewing Network Live. This is the show where we sit down, we have a stream of consciousness conversation talking about things that happened in the previous week, and we sit back, we talk, and I talk about some of the things that I've seen over the last week, some news stories that I have some interesting takes on, or some takes on my own on them, but basically, it's a weekly stream of consciousness conversations from. It's very free form, so it's longer than my usual videos, and there's also a lot of unedited stuff here. There's going to be some foul language here, so if you really are not the person that would be into this type of stuff, you're more than welcome to step aside and move on to something else. But if you're up to the challenge, sit back, relax, and let's begin the conversation. And since most of you out there are probably new to the show, you probably don't know how we begin here. And we usually begin by taking a look at the weekend box office, mainly the top 5 movies. Sometimes there'll be something of noteworthiness outside the top 5, but mostly on here we cover the top 5 films of the week, the weekend that just happened. And Thanksgiving weekend just happened, and that's usually a very, very important weekend in terms of, like, you know, the big new releases. And this weekend, there were some big new releases, but not big box office. Not really for any of the new releases, but we're going to get to those as we move up the list here. But the number 5 film this week, which is, of course, Thanksgiving, the horror film that's based off the Grindhouse trailer directed by Eli Roth, and had not a bad hold for a horror film. But then again, the movie is called Thanksgiving, and the time to see this is this Thanksgiving weekend. $7.3 million, only dropping 30%, just a little under 30%, 29.4%. So, yeah, $24.1 million. I don't think the budget for this was that significant overall. Let me just double check just to make sure here. I don't think it was anything too much. I mean, it couldn't be. $15 million. Yeah, it was not a big. It's not a big budgeted film, so it's already it's gonna make more than double its money back, and probably this is the best weekend it'll have, because it'll drop off considerably the next week, as most of these movies will, because usually the weekend after Thanksgiving is usually when all these movies have significant drop-offs. But we will wait to see what happens there. But more than likely, Thanksgiving is going to be out of the top 5 next week, especially considering what's coming next week. But the number 4 film this week was number 2 last week, and that is DreamWorks' Trolls Band Together, which had a decent hold over last week, 41.6% drop-off to $17.5 million, $17.5 million. 2 weeks, $64.5 million, which already better than Trolls World Tour did, which opened straight at the beginning of the pandemic, didn't really make a ton of money at the box office, but supposedly did very well in terms of streaming. But Trolls Band Together has already grossed $145 million after 2 weeks. Probably will stick around in the top 5, in the box office for a little bit, the top 10, and probably get to $100 million when it's all said and done domestically. I mean, it's already out worldwide. This and the number 3 film, which is one of the biggest, which is another misguided, a big budgeted flop for Disney, but we might as well get to that one here. One of the two new releases this week, the number 3 film, and that is Disney's Wish, which cost $200 million to make, only brought in $19.5 million. 5-day total since it opened on Wednesday, $31.7 million. If you account the worldwide gross into this, the worldwide gross is not any better, but worldwide gross is up to $49 million. And like I said, this thing has a budget of $175 million to $200 million, which is not a good sign for this film. It's just part of a year where Disney, they've really been struggling at the box office. The movies they've made, though, have not been terrible. I mean, there have not been too many bad Disney movies released in 2023. I mean, the worst movie they released this year was Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and even then, it wasn't even a bad movie. There was just so many bad elements to it. I mean, MODOK in that film was one of the reasons why I hated that movie so much more than I should have. But, you know, The Little Mermaid was actually one of the big surprises of the year. Elemental was one of my favorite films of the year. Indiana Jones, I liked Indiana Jones. I liked The Marvels. I thought that one was actually much better than everyone made it out to be. And I like this movie, too. I'm going to get into Wish in just a little bit, because this is one of the two movies I'm going to talk about that I saw this week and I wanted to do a review on. But I think the movie will do fine over the course of the holidays, because there isn't a big family film coming now until Migration comes out on Christmas Day. Wonka, maybe. That probably might take some of the money away, but the movie and Trolls Band Together should still hold on during the holiday season because of the lack of big family animated films. I think that, like, look back to last year, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, and the year before that, Sing 2 were both massive hits when those came out, but yeah, Wish unfortunately did not do well at all, and I'm really disappointed by that, honestly, because the movie really is not a bad movie. Like, I've seen so many people talk about how bad it is. Oh, it's just a commercial for Disney's 100 years of and all that type of stuff. Like, it's just like, it's not an interesting movie. But, you know, I've seen other movies that are basically commercials that nobody has a real problem with, but this is the one that everyone's got to have a problem with. I'll delve more into this in my review coming up for it, but let's go to the number 2 movie. And the number 2 movie this week is Ridley Scott's Napoleon with Joaquin Phoenix. This is a film that is one of those Apple original films that's having a simultaneous theatrical release followed by a streaming release at a later date. Another movie that has a high budget to it, $130 to $200 million. The movie has grossed $20.4 million for the weekend, $32.5 million after 5 days. So it kind of opened in the same area as Killers of the Flower Moon did, which is out of the top 10 right now at $65.6 million. The budget on that is that film has not made back its $200 million budget. It's at $151 million. Napoleon, in its first weekend, is at $78.8 million, which, it's not bad, but it's not great either. But the big thing is that this beat out Disney's Wish, which was which Wish was supposed to dominate this weekend, but it's just barely. But it is just barely, though. $900,000 difference. I don't think it's really going to change all that much in terms of the placing, but it's much closer than it should be. But like I said, Wish should have been dominating this weekend, but unfortunately, just nobody went to go see Wish, unfortunately, and nobody really went to go see Napoleon either. Like, Ridley Scott has been a very mixed bag director as of late. He's made some movies that are not as good as everybody made them out to be. Like, everyone went crazy when he made the last Duel, and I hated that movie. I really despised that film all so much. Alien Covenant, All the Money in the World. I'm the only one that liked House of Gucci, and that was the one everybody was just like, oh, that's not a good movie. It's just like, that's the one you're gonna get. That's the one you're gonna get. Is you're gonna say is bad? What about The Last Duel? The Last Duel was a bad movie. I don't know. It's a Me Too movie set in medieval times, and it's not a good film. I'm sorry, it just isn't. Like, it just didn't work for me. That film did. Like, it's just one of those things where it's just that movie's a big misfire. It's the idea of combining a medieval times film with a Me Too drama, and it's not executed well. It goes on way too long. You don't have any sympathy for any character whatsoever. And I was one of the few people that had that on my worst of the year list. I hated that movie so much. This film, I think, is going to have that same impact, because the reviews for this have not been the greatest overall. It's been a very mixed bag. There's been a lot of mixed bag reviews. And from the stuff I've seen, they're trying to add in some really silly comedic elements to it that just feel absolutely pointless in this film. So I don't know. I'm not saying the movie is bad or anything. I haven't seen it yet, but I really don't. I'm really not keen on checking this movie out at anytime soon. Honestly, like there's nothing about this film that really makes me say I have to go see this movie now. But I don't feel that way right now. But $20 million, $32.5 million after 5 days. Not the best opening, and it actually did open much less than Killers of the Flower Moon did too. But I don't know. I don't know what that's going to pan out there. So that's Napoleon, number 2. And the number 1 movie this week, The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, the number 1 film last week, dropping only 35%, $28.8 million, bringing in $98.3 million. Worldwide, its gross is up to $154 million. So it's making its money back. The movie so far, the movie I think only cost $100 million to make, if I'm not mistaken, because it's Lionsgate, and Lionsgate's not a big studio that tends to spend a ton of money on this. But yeah, $151 million after 2 weeks, which worldwide, which is not bad per se, and it actually is holding up pretty well, all things considered. So I still have to go check that out. That'll be something I'll see next week, as well as Trolls Band Together. Although I really do want to check out the big movie that's coming out next week, and that is Renaissance, the Beyonce Knowles movie. That's one I really want to check out at some point. Hopefully, I'll get to see it at some point before it leaves theaters, before the end of the month, which I would assume it would, because I think the expectations of this are going to be. I think this should do well at the box office overall. So yeah, like I said, that's one I want to check out at some point, and hopefully it'll still be around when I get a chance to see it. But yeah, next week's going to be some catching up. I'll see Hunger Games and Trolls Band Together, and then I'll have a review for that over on Talking About the Movies, which, speaking of some movies I want to talk about, let's talk about the 2 movies that I saw this weekend. So let's go ahead and start with Wish. So yeah, like I said, because we're getting so close to later in the day, I usually do my Talking About the Movies reviews early in the day and have those up there, but to kind of condense this down into one thing, I'm going to do both my reviews for Wish and Next Goal Wins in this episode here. So let's go ahead and just run through a quick review here of Wish. I'm not going to be too long on this, hopefully, but Wish is the film that is basically inspired by the 100th anniversary of Disney, which ties together a major theme across most Disney films, and that is, of course, Wish is coming true. You follow the story of the 17-year-old girl named Asha, played by Ariana DeBose, who, of course, won the Oscar for West Side Story, playing now I can't remember her name, Anita in that film. Great movie, by the way, underrated Steven Spielberg film, and she makes a passionate plea to the stars in a moment of need after sensing a darkness in the kingdom of Rosas that no one else does. That darkness being is that the King Magnifico, played by Chris Pine, he is the man that grants everybody's wishes, or at least the wishes that he thinks are the ones that are going to do the most good, while the other ones are left up in the abandoned and trapped inside of his laboratory, his kind of lab he has upstairs in his castle. His wife, Queen Amalia, is by his side most of the time, but she's more on the side of Asha at times in terms of how he handles the magic and how he does everything. And like I said, something happens when Asha basically decides to go and wish on a star, and finds out and sees that the star comes down as this anthropomorphic ball of light, and they name her Star. And the magic gives the forest animals the ability to talk, including Asha's pet Valentino, played by Alan Tudyk. With the help of her friends, they try to get the wishes back and try to stop King Magnifico from basically taking over the world, and pretty much. And a lot of people really did not like this movie, unfortunately. And I say unfortunately because really, this thing deserves a lot better respect than the people give it credit for. It's not a great film. It certainly isn't going to be up there with the greatest Disney movies of all time. But at the same time, though, it's still a ton of fun. I really had a blast watching this movie. And once again, this is going back to what I said in the weekend box office. Disney has not had a lot of bad movies this year. Like, the box office has not been great for most of them, but overall, the movies overall were not bad films. Like I said, Quantumania was the worst film they did, and even then, it's bad for various different things. The movie itself is not a complete disaster by any means. Like, I like Little Mermaid, I liked Elemental, I liked Indiana Jones, I liked The Marvels, and I did like this film too. I think it is a solid film. I think it is a ton of fun. There are a lot of things about it I will agree, are not very good. Like, I don't like it's like, I'll start with the flaws of the film. The story is very generic. The story, you can kind of predict everything that's going to happen. Like, you can kind of predict, like, there's a part where they put this plan together and they think they're going to outsmart the king, but you know that because of something that happened beforehand, the king basically thought ahead. And there's that. There's a character that's one of Asha's friends that turns into a bad guy for, not really a bad guy, the assistant to a bad guy for no real reason. They don't really give a good explanation for why he decided to turn into a bad guy. Is why he decided to turn against Asha and everything, except for the fact that his wish was never granted. And it kind of comes out of nowhere, honestly. Like, usually you could see a little bit of build-up going towards that moment, but it never really shows up here. And it just makes for kind of a pointless villain turn, at least on his front. But, what's another thing I thought the songs overall were very good. I thought the first song, the Welcome to Rosas song, was probably the weakest song overall. In fact, a lot of the story elements in here really did not work out so well. Asha lives with this I believe it's the grandfather of her grandfather, Sabino, and he doesn't really have a fully fledged character arc overall. He doesn't really have a whole lot there that you get behind him with. Like, he basically wants his wish to come true. He's been waiting over 100 years, and the moment when he hears that from Asha about, hey, the king is not what he says he is, he just flat out, like, snaps at her for just like, don't take my wish, my hope for a wish to come away from me. It's just like it just comes out of nowhere. Like, a lot of the stuff that happens in this movie comes out of nowhere. Like, the big twists and turns, like, 99% of the time that's what happens, and most of the time it doesn't really come together as well as it would be in a much better Disney film overall. But I mean, it's not, like I said, it's not a bad movie, and like most of the stuff I really liked about the film comes from the characters. I liked Asha. I thought Ariana DeBose did a very good job handling that. I thought King Magnifico was a pretty good villain. It's good to see that we have a villain that is a straight up villain. Like, I liked some of the other villains they've had in the last couple of movies where they've had kind of a little bit of a side story where you actually kind of believe what they say. But in this one, Magnifico basically is just a classic style Disney villain. Like, he starts off as, he's kind of like a reminiscent of Gaston in a way, where like he starts off as kind of the sophisticated good guy, and then as the movie moves along, his true colors begin to form, and he becomes a sorcerer and a wizard. It's like a warlock in a way. It's kind of a warlock in a way because of the things that he does here, and he turns into a fun villain. And Chris Pine is having the time of his life playing this role. Like, you could definitely tell with this character that he's having the time of his life at this. Alan Tudyk playing Valentino I thought he was really funny. I thought a lot of his moments in there were kind of fun. I did like the idea that he makes fun of his voice, like, who knew my voice could be so low? Like, that's just the fun of having a guy like Alan Tudyk showing up in these Disney movies, and he gets a chance to really show off what he can do here. The music overall, I thought, was very good. Once the first song ended, every song that came after that, I thought was really well done. I liked the song that plays in the credits, A Wish Worth Making, which is done by Julia Michaels. I thought that was a really good song. I thought a lot of the songs in there worked very well. I liked the song with DeBose and Chris Pine, At All Costs, Knowing What I Know Now. I think these are very, very good songs overall in this film. Just the first song overall, I thought could have been a whole lot better. And they even included songs from classic. They even did a version at the end, in the very end credits, where you have Sabino, who's played very well by Victor Garber. I forgot to mention his name, but there's a bit in the post-credits where he starts doing When You Wish Upon a Star, and it basically is just him playing the song overall, and it plays in a transition into the Disney 100th anniversary logo, and I thought that was well done. I thought they did a very good job of handling that. The animation, when I first saw the trailers for this, I didn't know how I was going to feel about the animation overall, but once the movie gets going and you really get into the adventure overall, you do start to really appreciate the animation overall. It's really well done how they're able to handle a mix of CG animation while also combining it with a little bit of hand-drawn animation at the same time too. Like, it doesn't really, like, it's just really well done how they handled that. The references to the Disney stuff, a lot of people didn't like it. I thought it was alright for the most part. I thought they did a pretty good job. For the most part, is having the little nods and also the little callbacks to like Disney, to like the classic Disney stuff, and you see it throughout the course of the film, and you have to really, there's really a lot of blink and you'll see it type of moments. Like there's a moment towards the end when they defeat the king, and the king goes inside the staff that he has, and as soon as he gets in there, there's a split second where you see the mirror from Snow White, and that, like little stuff like that. There's a part when Magnifico's chasing Asha, and she's wearing like a suit that's very reminiscent of Cinderella's fairy godmother. There's a lot of references to stuff like Peter Pan, Mary Poppins, Zootopia, Bambi. There's a lot of references in there, and like I said, during the credits, they show like little pieces of the characters that have been part of the Disney label for the past 100 years. And it's really, I thought it was mostly well done. Some of it can be a little forced at times, but I didn't mind it all that much. But then again, I'm that type of person that loves Disney animation so much. I like this. I'm a Disney person through and through. I grew up with it. When I see that stuff on there, I'm just kind of like, okay, if you do it well enough, and I think it works fine. I thought it worked well. But yeah, like I said, it never really bothered me in the movie itself. But overall, yeah, I did like this movie a lot. Is it going to be in my top 10 list for the best of the year? No. Does it have a ton of flaws? Yeah, absolutely it does. But it's still a fun movie. I had a really good time with it. I don't know. I liked it more than a lot of people did. I'm probably going to be one of the more positive reviews for this film to come out. But yeah, I give it a thumbs up. I thought it was an overall enjoyable film. It definitely is not a classic by any means, but it is a fun movie. I had a lot of fun with it. I liked a lot of elements to it. I just thought it was a fun film overall. So that's my thoughts on Wish. Let's move on to the second film I saw this weekend, and that is Taika Waititi's Next Goal Wins. So Next Goal Wins is the latest film from Taika Waititi, who gave us Jojo Rabbit and the last two Thor movies, which I really liked all three of those movies. I really liked Ragnarok. I'm one of the few people that really like Love and Thunder, too. But I still think it's better than the other two Thor films, the first two films. But you have a story here where Michael Fassbender plays Thomas Rongen, the Dutch-American football coach, who faces the option of being fired or accepting an almost impossible task to convert the American Samoa national team, considered one of the weakest soccer teams in the world, into an elite squad. The storyline also includes a Fa-Feline player, I think I'm pronouncing this right, Fa-Feline player Jair Salua, who was the first transgender player to ever compete in a World Cup game. And, you know, this is not as good as some of Taika's other works. I haven't really turned my back on Taika Waititi as much as everybody else does, because I still find a lot of stuff of his that I do really like. I like What We Do in the Shadows. I do like Reservation Dogs, the show that just ended this year that was on Hulu. I've never seen Our Flag Means Death or Wellington Paranormal, so I can't really say anything about those, but I really have been a fan of his work over the last couple of years, and I thought that this film had some potential to it, but it definitely felt like a film that really didn't really know exactly. It's like, I feel like the tone of this one is feeling a little bit different. Like, Jojo Rabbit had the task of trying to make a PG-13 movie where a kid has an imaginary friend in Adolf Hitler, and that made it work so well. So I thought if anybody could make something like this work, probably Taika Waititi, and it does work for the most part. It's not a great film overall. It's a film that honestly has more flaws to it than there are good things about it, but never to the point where it really feels like it's a film. It never feels like a film that is completely lost in what it's trying to do here. I think the heart is in the right place for what Waititi is trying to do here, and I think there is a lot here to admire about this film, even if you're not the biggest soccer fan overall, which I'm not a big soccer fan, but I've grown to kind of come around to it thanks to stuff like Ted Lasso or Welcome to Wrexham. But in terms of this movie, the way this is handled, I think it's done very well. You do get involved with these characters a lot. Michael Fassbender, I think, does a very good job here. You have a cast that also includes people like Rachel House from Moana and Soul, Will Arnett, Elizabeth Moss, Rhys Darby, Caitlin Dever, Angus Sampson, Luke Hemsworth. I think there are a lot of elements of the film that do work overall. I think there is a fun camaraderie between this team. It's a fun sports comedy. It's a fun sports film that knows what it's trying to do. I wish it was done a little bit better, so like it could have something on the same level as something like a Jojo Rabbit or something like that, but it's still not a bad movie. I still found a lot about it that I really did enjoy about it. I thought it was very well done. I thought the acting overall was very good. The comedy is more hit than miss. There are definitely some times when the comedy really does not work overall, and like I said, it's fine for what it is. Could it have been better? Yeah, absolutely, it could have been a better film, but I think for what they have here, I think it's good enough. I think if I put it on the same level as something like Wish that I just talked about, definitely a film that could have been a whole lot better than it actually was, but still nowhere near as bad as people make it out to be. That's a quick review on that one, but I give this one a thumbs up. I think it is a marginal thumbs up at best. I don't think it's one of Waititi's best movies overall, but I haven't turned my back on him like I think a lot of people have. I think a lot of people have turned their back on him, kind of like they felt about Russell Brand and James Corden, but there's big differences between Russell Brand, James Corden, and Taika Waititi. Taika Waititi still has made some stuff recently that has still been very good. Go watch Reservation Dogs. Go watch What We Do in the Shadows. Go watch the stuff he did with The Mandalorian. Go watch Jojo Rabbit. Go watch Thor Ragnarok. Go watch the original What We Do in the Shadows movie. I think those are really great things that have come from him. And, like I said, I really enjoyed this film a lot. I definitely would have liked it a little bit more if it had been more polished in terms of the script. It didn't go too much into territory that we've seen done over and over again, but it's still fine for what it is. Like I said, I give it a marginal thumbs up. I think it is still a very solid film overall. I do recommend checking it out. If you like stuff like Jojo Rabbit, and if you like stuff like What We Do in the Shadows, you can definitely find some elements to this that do kind of work in the long run. But don't go in there expecting a classic film overall, like some of his other works that he's done recently that are far superior. But like I said, I enjoyed it. So, yeah, marginal thumbs up on that one. So those are my quick reviews for Wish the Next Go Win. So ordinarily, after the weekend box office, we move into story time, which we cover some of the big stories in the world of entertainment from the last week, including our first story right here. So because we do have a lot of stories here, I'll try to get through these pretty quickly. The first story I wanted to cover here is what's going on in the world of Star Wars, as it was announced that Dave Filoni, who, if you don't know who this guy is, you've definitely seen his work before. Even if you're not a Star Wars person, you should be very familiar with who this guy is, because he's done a lot of stuff with Lucasfilm Animation, of course, with Star Wars and with the Star Wars films, but he's done other stuff like King of the Hill. He did Timo Supremo, Kim Possible, directed a lot of episodes of Avatar The Last Airbender, and then he made the move over to Star Wars, where he worked on the Star Wars Clone Wars series, the 2008 show, and he's also done stuff like Mission Hill, The Oblongs, Lilo and Stitch the series. He's done a lot of work for a number of different animated shows, but the most notable stuff he did started with his work with the Star Wars Clone Wars 2008 series, which I've personally never been a big fan of, so I've never really gotten to see those episodes, those overall. So I don't know if I've ever. Basically, what I'm trying to say is I've never seen it, so I don't know if they're any good or not. I'm assuming they're good enough because they keep bringing him back for multiple things, and sure enough, He's also been working on the live-action films, the stuff they've done recently, like Star Wars: The Force Awakens, Rogue One: A Star Wars Story. He's done a lot of work on the Disney Plus shows. So much so that Lucasfilm has given him the keys to the castle, pretty much. It was announced this week that Dave Filoni will be the new Chief Creative Officer at Lucasfilm. This was a story that Vanity Fair broke and eventually made it to other places. Filoni will now be involved in the early development of Star Wars projects, working with Lucasfilm head Kathleen Kennedy and head of development Carrie Beck. The move comes as Star Wars is at an inflection point. While it's been successful on the small screen, helping power subscriptions on Disney Plus, it has struggled to get films on the ground. There have been no features in theaters since the divisive Rise of Skywalker in 2019, which, I don't know, I still think that's a lot better than the prequel. I still think that movie's better than the prequels, but I still think it's not a great movie, but I will still take the sequel trilogy over the prequels any day of the week. As announced in April, Filoni is directing a live-action feature to direct one that is said to tie together the time periods between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens and feature characters from the Disney Plus show. Filoni has worked in the Star Wars galaxy 2 decades, cutting his teeth into the worlds of animation of projects such as The Clone Wars and Rebels, before jumping into live-action with series such as The Mandalorian. Filoni recently finished unveiling the first season of Ahsoka, which he created and picked up threads from his animated TV shows. For many, he is the heir apparent to George Lucas. Filoni told Vanity Fair, "I'm not telling people what to do, but I do feel I'm trying to help them tell the best story they want to tell. I need to be a help across the galaxy here, like a part of the Jedi Council almost." And honestly, I applaud the mood. I think this guy has done a lot of great stuff over the years. I've really been a big fan of the Disney Plus shows. I like The Mandalorian. I think Ashoka? I feel like I'm mispronouncing this name. Let me see. I just want to see if I get this right here.
Ahsoka.
Ahsoka. Ahsoka. That's the pronunciation I'm trying to look for here. But yeah, I liked Ahsoka with Rosario Dawson playing that character. I thought she did a very good job with that. I do think Dave Filoni is the right guy to go to here with the Star Wars series, because it does need a rebuild, especially in terms of the film department. Even though I've liked what they've done under Disney, I'm one of those few people that really likes what Disney has done with Star Wars ever since George Lucas handed it over to them. I like the sequel trilogy. I would say I like Force Awakens a lot. Last Jedi I really liked a lot as well. Rise of Skywalker is definitely the worst of the three, but I will still gladly take it over the prequels any day. I will take that over Attack of the Clones by a large margin. I've liked the sequels, the spin-offs they've done. Rogue One, Solo, I thought those were very good. And I'm very curious to see where they go with these new films. I think they have to figure out a way to get people back into Star Wars again. And I really want to see what they do with these films going forward. I know there's a film coming up with James Mangold, who just did Indiana Jones, which I really liked. There's one by Stephen Knight, who's done some stuff about the new Jedi Order, which I'm very curious to see what they do. And Dave Filoni's doing the one about the New Republic. And there's also a lot of other different things. There's a spin-off about Lando Calrissian, played by Donald Glover, that there's in the works. Sean Levy is doing a Star Wars film, supposedly. There's a lot of stuff to look forward to in the Star Wars universe, and I'm really excited to see what Dave Filoni brings to the table here. I think he'll do a great job. I'm really excited to see where they go from here. I'm one of those people that, like I said, I've liked what they've done with Star Wars under Disney. I'm one of those few people that probably will say that. In fact, I might be the only person that says that, but I've not seen a whole lot of bad stuff coming from Star Wars once Disney took over. Again, that's my personal take on it, but yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what they do here. I'm really excited to see where they go from there. So that is the story about Dave Filoni. Let's move on to our next story. We're getting a lot of news now about Superman Legacy, which is James Gunn's reboot of the Superman universe. It's going to be the first film as part of his first production as the co-head of DC Studios. And we got some big casting news this week. After this story that I'm about to tell you came out, there was a story about Sarah Sampaio playing Eve Tessmacher, who, if you remember from the original Superman movie, she was created as a character in Superman and Superman 2. She was portrayed in that film by Valerie Perrine, and then later on by Andrea Brooks in the CW Supergirl. But before that news broke, we got a story about how Nicholas Hoult is going to be playing Lex Luthor. Now, Nicholas Hoult, I believe, was one of the runners-up to play Superman, and of course that went to David Corenswet. And of course, Nicholas Hoult is best known, got his career started with About a Boy. He was in The Weatherman, a criminally underrated Nicolas Cage movie. But most of you know him as Beast in X-Men First Class and in the X-Men sequel trilogy as of late. But he's done stuff like Mad Max Fury Road, Jack the Giant Slayer, Warm Bodies. He was in Deadpool 2, had a cameo in that one. He's going to play John in the Garfield movie. He was Justin Renfield in The Menu. He's been in a lot of stuff you probably have seen, but this is he's going to be playing Lex Luthor in this film, and so he's doing this. He's also working with Warner Brothers on the new Clint Eastwood film, Juror Number 2, and it was announced that he is going to be following in the lines of people such as Gene Hackman, Kevin Spacey, and Jesse Eisenberg, who played Luthor on screen in the Warner Brothers Superman franchise. Gunn selected Corenswet and Brosnahan as his main leads after months of auditions and tapes and imperfect person screen tests, and before the actor strike, but continued to be in prep on the movie. I did see somewhere where they said what the plot of the film is. I have to go back to the Sarah Sampaio story about Tessmacher. Let me see. Here we go. The first title in a revamped DC slate, the James Gunn-directed Superman Legacy follows Superman as he looks to reconcile his Kryptonian heritage, but with his human upbringing. He is the embodiment of truth, justice, and the American way, guided by human kindness in a world that sees kindness as old-fashioned. Gunn also penned the script drawing on characters created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, and the film comes out on July 11, 2025. So, honestly, I'm really excited to see what James Gunn brings to the table with this film. Of course, he did a great job with the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Superman needs a good reboot after what Zack Snyder did, which I'm sorry, the Snyderverse Superman was... I'm sorry, I like Henry Cavill as an actor, but he did not fit the role of Superman at all. Like, I thought he was a plank of wood in that show, in those movies. And and it just didn't work overall. So I'm really excited to see what what James Gunn brings to the table here. I really want to see what happens with these films. I hope this actually turns out to be really good. It looks like James Gunn really is putting his heart and soul into this. Like, he knows what's on the line with this film. Like, he knows exactly what he's doing, and I hope he does, because, you know, he did this with Guardians of the Galaxy, and he made that work so well, and now he gets one of the biggest super characters in pop culture history, maybe greatest characters of all time. It's probably easily the greatest character of all time, Superman. And it's going to be really curious. I'm going to be really excited to see what they do here. Like, I really want to see how this pans out. I think this could be really well done. And looks like it could be a nice little love letter to the Christopher Reeve movies, which it looks like they're going to do. I think this is going to be a film that takes place after the events of Superman 2, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that. Don't quote me on that, but that's what I heard. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what they bring to the table with this. The casting so far has been looking pretty good, so I'm pumped to see this. I can't wait to see this when it comes out in not this summer, but the summer after that. But so that's the story about Superman Legacy. On to our next story. Another big story this week. Apparently, you can't keep Jason Bourne down, because we got news this week that not only is Jason Bourne probably coming back, but he's probably going to get a movie right away with a pretty good director who made a really good film that came out last year. So this is a story from Deadline Hollywood. After his World War I epic All Quiet on the Western Front took home the Oscar for Best International Feature Film and 3 others, director Edward Berger might have found his follow-up project with one of the biggest action heroes of the century. Sources tell Deadline that Universal Pictures is looking to get back in business with Jason Bourne, as the studio has begun early development on a new installment of the Jason Bourne franchise that Berger is in negotiations to oversee development and direct the pick. Universal could not be reached for comment, and insiders close to the project say there is no script at this time and that it is still in early development. That said, Berger has been in high demand following All Quiet's big night at the Oscars, and his potential involvement with the project has all parties very excited about the future of Bourne. Obviously, if a deal closes, Berger would be the only attachment at the time, but insiders add that Matt Damon, who starred as Bourne in 4 of the 5 films, will be approached first to return in the iconic role once the script is finished. As always, everything has to be executed perfectly for Damon to even consider coming back to the franchise, and that starts with a great script and story. So as of right now, no commitment from him until all of that is in place. Like the Fast and Furious franchise, Bourne is a very important IP to Universal that has led to both massive box office dollars as well as huge critical acclaim, and is always a property that is highly valued at the studio. I mean, they just recently opened the Bourne ride at Universal Studios, which was basically a stage show in the Terminator 2 building, which I've wanted to see. I haven't gone back to Universal since they opened it, but that's one of the things I really want to check out once we go back there. If we ever go back there. I'll probably get back there at some point. But bottom line here, a new Bourne film is coming out. And in terms of the Bourne films, I like the first 3 films. I thought the Bourne Identity is really good. Bourne Supremacy I thought was a much better film. Bourne Ultimatum was surprisingly better than those 3 films. Those are films that just got better and better and better with each film. And then it took a nosedive after that with the Bourne Legacy, the one with Jeremy Renner, which really was a huge, huge misfire to me. Like, I like Jeremy Renner a lot. I thought he was perfect for the role, but the story in that film just really, it was not a good film. I thought that easily is the worst film in the entire series. It just felt like a complete disaster. I thought Jeremy Renner was the best thing about the film, but everything else about that film didn't feel like a real Bourne movie. The smartly written and cleverly done action sequences that are shot beautifully and are a ton of fun to watch, those are pushed aside, and Universal, I feel like, kind of made this just to make a quick buck on it. But it was one of my picks for the worst films of 2012. But I thought they made a nice rebound with Jason Bourne. But it'd be nice if they got Paul Greengrass to come back and do another one. But Edward Berger's not a bad director. I saw his All Quiet on the Western Front finally this year. I thought it was very good. I thought it was actually a really well-made film. I never saw the original All Quiet on the Western Front, but I thought they did a pretty good job handling that. So, yeah, honestly, I'd be very interested to see what he can bring to the table here. But then again, it could end up like that Pirates of the Caribbean sequel where they got the directors of Kon-Tiki to do it. And Kon-Tiki is a really well-done film, but they're being asked to take on a Pirates of the Caribbean film without really doing anything new or different with it to make it stand out. And that film kind of suffered because of that. But I have more trust in this because the Bourne movies, for the most part, have been very good, for the most part, except, of course, for Bourne Legacy. So I'm definitely very curious to see how this one pans out. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing if this actually happens, first of all. But if it does, I'd definitely check it out. I definitely want to see more adventures with Jason Bourne. Let's see what they can do with it. So that's I believe that's our third story, huh? On to number 4. Speaking of the Bourne movies, the director of the first Bourne film, Doug Liman, has got a big new project on him, and that's Paramount's remake of The Saint. This was announced a couple years ago with Rege Jean Page from Bridgerton. He was also just in Dungeons and Dragons, which I thought was a very fun film. They've been talking about this Saint movie for a while now. This is a story from Deadline Hollywood, and here's how it goes. Paramount's highly anticipated The Saint reimagining is gaining some serious momentum as sources tell Deadline Doug Liman is attached to direct. Rege Jean Page will executive produce and star in the pick. Lorenzo Di Bonaventura and Mark Veridian will produce, with the late Robert Evans also credited as the producer. Plot details are being kept under wraps, and Rory Haynes and Sohrab Noshrani are writing the script. Based in part on Leslie Charter's 1920s book series and subsequent 1960s TV show starring Roger Moore, The Saint follows Simon Templar, better known as the Saint, a Robin Hood-esque criminal and thief for hire who goes on a globe-trotting adventure. While plot details for this pick are being kept under wraps, insiders say that this will be a completely new take that reimagines the character and world around him. Paramount released the 1997 film version starring Val Kilmer, which was a big hit for the studio, and Paramount sees this as the perfect time to relaunch since Page has become a star with his Netflix series Bridgerton. Lyman is no stranger to launching new franchises, as he did with The Bourne Identity, as in gives new spins on action classics, having just wrapped production on MGM's remake of Roadhouse with Jake Gyllenhaal. Now, with Lyman on board, expect The Saint to be high priority for the studio's pre-production on a lot of films ramp up post-SAG strike. So yeah, this is one that I've been really kind of interested in because I really like what they did with the Val Kilmer Saint movie that came out in 1997. It was directed by the guy who did Patriot Games and Clear and Present Danger. I've never seen the original TV series that this was based off of, but I really like this actor a lot. Rege Jean Page, I think, he's a really good actor. I saw him in little bits and pieces on Bridgerton. I thought it was very good, but I really liked him in Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Amongst Thieves. I thought he was actually one of the fun things about that film. So I'm really curious to see how this pans out. I can't wait to see this movie turn out because I really like the original Saint film, and I'm really curious to see where they go from here, what the new things they'll do to try to make this modernized for a new generation. They did a pretty good job with that recently. Paramount's done that with Jack Ryan. They did a pretty good job with the John Krasinski series. What's the other one they did? Jack Reacher, the show they did with Alan Ritchson, is very good. I've seen a little bits and pieces of that. I think that's also on Amazon as well. So I'm very curious to see how this pans out. I'm really tempted to see how this works out. But so that is the story about The Saint. Let's move on to our next story. So one of the big stories from earlier in the week was that Disney basically took one of their pretty much highly anticipated movies from 2023, the new Jeff Nichols-directed film, The Bikeriders, with Austin Butler from Elvis and Jodie Comer from Killing Eve. They already had a trailer for this out already. There was posters all over the place, but they basically, this week, Disney decided that they were going to sell the film to somebody else. They weren't going to release the movie. And not but a couple of days after that happened, Focus Features, which is owned by Universal, is taking control of the film from this point, is on the film. From Deadline Hollywood, of course. A lot of these stories are coming from Deadline. New Regency's Jeff Nichols-directed crime drama, The Bikeriders, which was at 20th Century Studios, is getting acquired by Focus Features. Focus is taking global rights for the pick, reteaming them with New Regency, who they partnered with on 2022's The Northman. A 2024 theatrical release is planned. Universal will distribute the movie overseas. The movie was previously dated for December 1st via 20th Century Studios and Disney. However, New Regency made the choice to pull the movie back, I hear, due to the ongoing actor strike and the cast unable to promote. And the film apparently was seen by a lot of critics already because it's got an 85% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. We are delighted to... this is from the Focus Features chairman, Peter Kujawski. We are delighted to add such a riveting project to next year's strong slate of films. We look forward to once again working alongside New Regency and reuniting with the multi-talented Jeff Nichols on another one of his visionary projects. This film emphasizes our commitment to collaborate with the industry's best filmmakers and production partners, and we can't wait to build upon its early success to draw audiences into this poignant film, bolstered by powerful performances from an incredible cast. The movie, which made its world premiere at Telluride, was written by Nichols as well, stars Austin Butler, Jodie Comer, and Tom Hardy, and follows the rise of a Midwestern motorcycle club called the Vandals. Seen through the lives of its members, the club evolves over the course of a decade from a gathering place for local outsiders into a more sinister gang, threatening the original group's unique way of life. So, yeah, this is interesting because, Disney's not having a good year when you know that when two of their biggest Oscar contenders, like this film, and then that was followed by Magazine Dreams, were supposed to come out in December, but they got taken off the schedule because, obviously, with what's going on with Jonathan Majors, and now you have this right here, and Universal just comes in and sweeps this film up, and, that's just, it's very concerning. It's a very concerning thing over at Disney, but Focus Features just nabbed one from them, and all the stuff I've been hearing about this has been pretty good. I mean, the trailers for this look pretty good. I mean, a great cast overall. Jodie Comer is very good from Killing Eve and Free Guy. Tom Hardy, what more do you need to say about him? Austin Butler, I think, has a lot of potential as an actor, even though I really didn't like his movie Elvis. I thought he was actually one of the stronger things about it. But yeah, it was an interesting situation that took place with this particular movie. It's a film that I think that I probably could have been a decent Oscar contender overall, but at least this year. But I think now that it's opening next year, it's going to have the floodgates wide open, and it could easily have a chance to be one of the big Oscar contenders, depending on what happens with what's going to happen with the 2024 Oscar slate. But like I said, I saw the trailers for this. The trailers look promising overall, so it's an interesting situation here, and I really don't understand why Disney decided not to release this. I don't know if they just didn't have the money to release it, or the fact that they said that they pulled it back because of the actor strike and the cast unable to promote. Well, the strike's been over for a couple weeks now, and supposedly there was also talk that it was because of the Beyonce movie coming out, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't work within the studio. I'm just reporting what I'm seeing here, and honestly, I feel like this is a decision that Disney is going to regret in the long run. But yeah, this is something that I feel like Disney's probably going to regret doing when it's all said and done. I think this thing is going to be, they needed something positive to come out of this year in terms of, the financial situations and the fact that all the stuff that's been going on behind the scenes, not just in terms of their movies, but the way their company has pretty much gone in the last couple of months, especially with the actor strike and Bob Iger showing his true colors, pretty much, of him being kind of a scumbag, up there with David Zaslav, some of the things they said. But yeah, I feel like this is one of those things that Disney is going to regret doing and regret taking away from not bothering to promote in the long run and letting it go somewhere else. I think that's something that they're going to regret is considerably. So, not much more to say about that one. That's the Bikeriders. So let's go ahead and move on to our next story. So we've known for a while now that there's going to be a new Karate Kid movie coming out in 2024. It's going to be premiering in theaters in this next December. And this week we got some new information from the stars of the new Karate Kid movie. We have Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio. And you're probably wondering, well, aren't these two guys in two separate universes? I mean, or two separate storylines here? Well, yeah, but there was a story that came out this week where they had a video for an open casting call for young kids to star in this new Karate Kid movie. And it basically said that, I've got the story right here, so I'll tell you about it here. This is from Variety, like I said. Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio, who starred in separate Karate Kid franchises decades apart, will unite for a brand new movie set in the martial arts franchise. The new movie from Sony Pictures director Jonathan Entwistle, Entwistle, I'm just going to say it's that, Entwistle, and writer Rob Lieber will premiere in theaters on December 13th, 2024. Plot details are kept under wraps on the new movie, but Macchio will reprise his role as Daniel LaRusso, who he played in the original Karate Kid film trilogy and brought back on Netflix's Cobra Kai. Chan will return to the role of Mr. Han, who he played against and coached Jaden Smith in the 2010 remake movie, The Karate Kid, even though he was a kung fu master in that movie. Macchio has been kept the character of Daniel going through Cobra Kai, which announced its sixth and final season earlier this year, and it's unclear how the sprawling story of Cobra Kai will factor into the new Karate Kid movie. Making the announcement in the video posted by YouTube, Chan and Macchio launched a global casting search for a brand new Karate Kid to lead the movie, inviting young members to submit audition tapes. So, not much more to say about this one. Basically, the two different Karate Kid universes are combining in here, which, most of the Karate Kid movies I do like. Karate Kid, Karate Kid 2, I like the remake. The remake was surprisingly enjoyable, the 2010 one. Part 3 and the next Karate Kid, not so much. I mean, I'm not going to be too upset that Hilary Swank isn't coming back for this, which, yeah, that one is not the best one of the... That one is not a good film in that series. If you've never seen the next Karate Kid, I'd say watch it just for some of the bad acting that comes from this. Like, Hilary Swank has 2 Academy Awards, but in that film, man, I don't know who was telling her to act the way she does in that movie, but that was not a good movie for her. But I've liked Cobra Kai. I've only seen little bits and pieces. I haven't seen the entire series overall, but the little stuff I've seen, I think definitely really is well done. I'm really excited to see what they do here in terms of bringing these universes together. I'd actually be surprised if they bring Jaden Smith back, though. I think that'd be... I don't know how I would feel if they brought him back. I think it would be interesting because it would tie back into the original film, the remake, I should say, not the original film. But I'd be very curious to see how that pans out. I'm really excited to see where they go with that. And like I said, it comes out next Christmas, so definitely interested to see where that goes into play. So that is the news about the Karate Kid. Now let's get to probably the biggest story of the entire week, and that is the story about Scream 7. So this was obviously the biggest story of the week in Hollywood, because in a matter of a week, one of the most anticipated sequels of the last couple of years, with the way the Scream series has been rejuvenized under Spyglass and Paramount, has now taken a turn for the worst. And we're going to go back in time to see where this all began. We'll start off on I believe it was Tuesday when the story first broke that Melissa Barrera is no longer starring in Scream 7. The actress was dropped from the project after a series of social media posts in the wake of the Israel-Hamas war, which I'm not going to bring up on here. I try to stay away from politics here on this particular channel. We're here to just talk about the ramifications of the movies itself. I don't want to delve into that unless I really need to do it, but I digress. Let's go ahead and look at some of these comments here. Gaza is currently being treated like a concentration camp. These are things that she wrote in an Instagram story. Cornering everyone together with nowhere to go, no electricity, no water. People have learned nothing from our histories, and just like our histories, people are still silently watching it all happen. This is genocide and ethnic cleansing. A spokesperson for Spyglass released a statement saying that the initial publication of the article, Spyglass's stance is unequivocally clear. We have zero tolerance for anti-Semitism or the incitement of hate in any form, including false references to genocide, ethnic cleansing, Holocaust distortion, or anything that flagrantly crosses the line into hate speech, which, I don't know. I don't really think that's what she was trying to say there, but I digress. But we move on here. Happy Death Day filmmaker Christopher Landon is taking over directing duties from filmmakers Radio Silence. Filming had not begun, and development had been slowed due to the actors and writers strike. Landon said on Twitter on Tuesday, "This is my statement. Heartbroken. Everything sucks. Stop yelling. This was not my decision to make." He later deleted the post, and this comes on the same day that Susan Sarandon had been dropped by her talent agent because of comments at a pro-Palestinian rally in New York the previous week. So that was on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, the other ball dropped, as it was announced that Jenna Ortega, who is obviously one of the hottest young actresses working right now, with this and Wednesday on Netflix, she left the project as well. So it said one day after Spyglass fired Melissa Barrera from Scream 7, it was revealed that Jenna Ortega will also not be returning. Losing the 2 main leads who were instrumental in revitalizing the aging franchise now puts the future in question. Christopher Landon remains on board as director for now, but next steps for Spyglass remains unclear. Sources insist that Ortega's departure had nothing to do with Barrera's firing, which occurred after she made dozens of social media posts referring to the Israel-Hamas war. Sources say that Ortega's representatives informed Spyglass prior to the actor strike that the actress would not be returning. Multiple sources says the actress either had no deal or, in the renegotiation of her option, asked what the movie company deemed was too much money. Spyglass previously declined to bring back Neve Campbell for Scream 6, saying that she would later go on to say, "I couldn't walk on set feeling undervalued." So, once that story broke, we now go over to Variety, which did a story about what happens from this point on. So they basically said, they kind of talk about everything that's been going on. Where do we want to go here? Here we go. Backlash to Barrera's ouster has been intense, with the film director Christopher Landon reacting to the events surrounding her exit. The previously mentioned tweet that I talked about before. It seemed to some fans like the planned sequel was collapsing in real time. However, even before Barrera was fired, plans for the next Scream were being retooled. Ortega's exit had required the creative team to make some alterations according to individuals with knowledge, but there were still hopes that the actors might be convinced to come back for some sort of cameo. That no longer seems to be in the cards. Another source familiar with the franchise disputed this, saying Ortega was never in the mix for the new film. James Vanderbilt and Guy Busick, who wrote the previous 2 Scream films, are now working on a fresh draft to present to filmmakers. Some set pieces and twists may be preserved, but the movie will need to find 2 new protagonists. Ortega and Barrera signed out for 2 Scream movies and fulfilled their obligations with installments 5 and 6. They would have needed new deals for the 7th chapter. So who will do battle with the masked killer? The Scream movie has a bunch of characters who are still alive and could be reanimated. It's a horror movie, after all. That's their quote. Those include Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox, the original stars of the series. Campbell appeared in the 2022 Scream, but opted not to return for Scream 6 over a salary dispute. Producers are keen to see her reclaim her iconic character, Cindy Prescott. Another character that could be returning is Patrick Dempsey, who had a scene-stealing turn in Scream 3. None of those actors have been in active negotiations thus far, which, I'm just going to say it right now, this sounds like desperation, trying to save this franchise by going back to the past and trying to bring back people who have honestly kind of I mean, I'm sure these people love coming back to these movies, especially Neve Campbell. Like, you could tell that she was heartbroken when she was basically not given the chance to come back to do Scream 6. But Patrick Dempsey coming back, like, I know the guy was just the sexiest man alive in People magazine. I just saw that at the newsstands this last couple of weeks. But I feel like they're only considering Patrick Dempsey because of that. Because he really hasn't done anything of noteworthiness since Grey's Anatomy ended. His time on there ended, at least. But I don't know. This just feels like desperation. Like, if you're going to do something different with the Scream series. I mean, there's so many options of what you can do with the Scream series from this point on. And Christopher Landon is a great horror director. He's done a lot of really great stuff. He did the Happy Death Day movies, which are a ton of fun. Freaky was very fun. I mean, you can do so much with the Scream series overall, but I feel like they're just going to try to go back to the past on here, and it's just not going to work out as well as I think they wanted to. But they have to have it because Scream is now a big franchise for Paramount Pictures, So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like them trying to bring back Neve Campbell and Patrick Dempsey for this feels like true desperation. And, who knows? Hey, why stop there? Why not bring back all the characters that died in the last couple of movies? Like, why don't you bring back, Drew Barrymore? Have her come back. Have her return from the first movie. I mean, why not? Go nuts with it. But, yeah, like, I don't think this is going to be any good. But, I do have one last update here. This happened on, this happened a day after she got fired. Melissa Barrera sharing her first public words, saying after she'd been fired from the 7th installment of the series. She said, "First and foremost, I condemn anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. I condemn hate and prejudice of any kind against any group of people," which I think most good people really are. I know I certainly am, but again, we're not going to delve too far into that for obvious reasons. But Spyglass fired Barrera after a wave of social media posts she shared amid the Israeli-Hamas war, for which the Scream Studios, in a statement Tuesday, characterized as anti-Semitic. And she goes on to say that, "As a Latina, proud Mexicana, I feel the responsibility of having a platform that allows me the privilege of being heard, and therefore I have tried to use it to raise awareness about issues I care about and to lend my voice to those in need. Every person on this earth, regardless of religion, race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, or socioeconomic status, deserves equal human rights, dignity, and, of course, freedom." And again, I think a lot of us can agree on that. And, yeah, I don't really know how to, it's like, I feel like Spyglass made the bad move on this, Paramount made the bad move on this to let this happen. Apparently, like, considering everything that they've done, like, trying to lowball Neve Campbell out of returning, even though she's the face of the franchise, pretty much, besides Ghostface. Yeah, like, it just doesn't feel, none of this feels right at all. It feels like there's a lot of unfairness going on here between the actors in here, and it just feels unfortunate that this has to happen, because I finally just got into watching all the Scream movies, and you know what? The newer Scream movies are actually kind of decent. I actually found myself enjoying the newer Scream films. I didn't really have a keen interest in seeing them beforehand, but when I got that set at Barnes & Noble earlier this year and finally got to watch them all back to back, I'm not gonna lie. I thought they were all pretty good. I thought the not all of them, the most recent films, the 2 films they had, were actually kind of fun. They were fun movies. So I don't know. Like, I hope they can. I hope something gets figured out about this whole thing. Like, But right now, it just feels like Spyglass is taking the wrong turn on this whole situation overall. Like, I feel like they're gonna do more harm to the series than do good. That's just my take on it. So that was, of course, the big story that happened this week with the whole thing going on with the Scream series. So we have one more news story here, and then we'll get to some things that I found in the past week that I thought were pretty interesting overall. So I'm a very happy person this week. Yeah, I was not in a good mood the last time I talked to you about the Pittsburgh Steelers because of what happened against the Cleveland Browns, but I'm in a much better mood now because, well, first of all, on Tuesday, they finally cut the cord on Matt Canada. Matt Canada is fired, and when that happened, everyone was singing the praises. I was singing the praises. I was like Bender on Futurama with the tap dancing girl. It's like if Matt Canada was the tap dancing girl, I was like Bender, and I was just like, yeah, in your face, little girl. I'm not even gonna wait to dance on your grave. I'm gonna dance on your corpse right now. And I'm just, like doing the Michael Flatley Lord of the Dance on top of him right now. Like that's how I felt that's how I felt when that news broke. And so here we are now on a Sunday night. The Steelers have played, and you know what? Your first game with over 400 yards in 58 games. You beat the Bengals. You look pretty good for the most part. I mean, granted, the offense still has a little bit of some problems here and there, but we'll work on it. But you know what? It's much better than where we were at before. I mean, it's a step in the right direction. The Steelers won. The Browns just lost. All is right with the world again. Like, excuse me for 1 second, though. Let me just, I just need to go get something.
Saints be praised, saints be praised. Hallelujah.
Yeah, I don't know why I did that. I felt like the floodgates open. Like, I felt like John Belushi and the Blues Brothers. I saw the light in the church, and James Brown's telling me, "Do you see the light?" And I'm just like, "I do. I see the light." And we have reached the light right now. Like things are looking up now. Finally, like I said though, it wasn't a perfect game. They could have scored more points, but you know what? The offense looked a whole lot better. The defense did its job. The Steelers are looking very, very good right now, and I feel like that, we still have to wait to see what happens because this is the NFL, and, the whole thing about any given Sunday and all that. Like, the schedule for the Steelers right now looks pretty good. They have Arizona coming to town next week. They have New England coming on Thursday night, and we don't know what their quarterback situation is right now with them. Then they got the Colts. I feel like that's going to be a tough one because the Colts are a mixed bag right now. Gardner Minshew has looked pretty good, stepping in for Anthony Richardson, but it's going to be tough to tell what they're going to be like right now in terms of when they get to that point. But they'll have Cincinnati again, which will be a Christmas game, which I feel like that could be a trap game for the Steelers, especially what they did with them today. But the Bengals themselves didn't look too good either. But then again, you have 4 weeks to get ready for that one. So I feel like they'll be better prepared for that one. The toughest game I think they have coming up is Seattle. Seattle, I feel like, is going to be a really tough game. You got to go on the road all the way to Seattle. And, San Francisco beat them this past Thanksgiving. But it's hard to tell where they go from there. But the Ravens, that's just when the season ends. It's going to be in Baltimore. And that could literally be a game for the AFC North title. I feel like that could be the Sunday Night Football game that wraps the season up. And the winner of that game goes on to win the division. The loser probably has a wild card game. I feel like it's going to come down to the wire. I feel like that because I think the Ravens are going to have that usual December collapse that they usually have. That is because they're usually very good through October, November, and then all of a sudden when the season is winding down in December, they just kind of dip down. Like they have so many injuries. John Harbaugh makes plays that don't make a whole lot of sense. So it really could go either way with how this season transpires. We still got 6 weeks to go, pretty much. Yes, this is week 12, right? Week 12, yeah. So we still got 6 weeks to go, 6 games left. Steelers are in a good position right now, but they have to win the games. They can't take anybody for granted. They can't look at the 2-9 Arizona Cardinals and be like, "Oh, this will be an easy game," because Kyler Murray's probably going to come in there trying to win that game, and James Conner's coming back to Pittsburgh as well. And that could be a revenge game for him. It could be a revenge game for Juju Smith-Schuster in a couple weeks when the Patriots are not that good. But they just got to win it one at a time. And they just got to they just can't overlook these teams. They have to be ready for these teams as they get ready to head into this stretch run coming up here. They got through the first test now. And really, like I said before, like I said 2 weeks ago, if the Steelers are 1-1 at this point, that's fine. I feel like they'll be fine. I would have liked it if they won over Cleveland, and maybe they would have lost to Cincinnati, but you know what? You can't really predict that type of stuff. You can't really do it from this angle here, but you know what? Hey, we're looking in the right direction here. The Steelers got over 400 yards today. It's their first time in nearly 58 games. So all I can say is hallelujah. Saints be praised. We are back. We're back for, as one would hope, for a while now. But that was the last big news story I wanted to cover here. So let's go ahead and talk about some stuff that I found over the last week that I thought would be of interest to share with you guys here. By the way, before we move along here, I just wanted to let you know that this is a free preview episode of the Reviewing Network Live. And if you are liking what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, I want to advise you to go to our other channel. Subscribe to the Reviewing Network Live. I'll have a link down below. There'll be a link at the end of this video. And hit the like button on this. And I hope you guys are enjoying this. So let's keep going on here with some stories here in general that are not really related to anything that happened in the news this week. This is just things that I came across that I thought would be kind of interesting to talk about here. And this week on FXX, of course, that's a network that's the spin-off network for FX. It's now become mostly known as an animation hub for like all the classic Fox animated shows like King of the Hill, Futurama, Family Guy, Bob's Burgers, and of course, The Simpsons. And actually, we've talked about The Simpsons a lot over the last couple of weeks, but there was an episode that came on this week called The Telltale Head. This was back in the early season of The Simpsons, first season. Back on February 25th, 1990. If you don't remember what happens, in this episode, you have Bart becoming friends with Jimbo, Dolph, and Kearney, a group of local troublemakers. Trying to impress them, Bart decides to cut off and steal the head of the statue of Jebediah Springfield. The next day, the entire town grieves for the vandalized statue, and Bart discovers that his new friends want to attack the vandal. Feeling remorse, Bart confesses to his family, and Homer and Bart take the head back to the statue after passing through the furious people. The episode actually begins with them taking the head back, and then the angry mob shows up, and it's basically a flashback episode. And the episode itself is really damn good. It's a really damn good episode with a lot of great comic moments. It has a lot of good twists and turns to keep the audience invested in what's going on here. You basically have Bart trying to fit in with a group of friends and thinking that anything he can do will impress them, and he does do that. However, when the most interesting part of the episode comes into play, like Bart basically says, I'm going to cut the head off. I'll show it to my friends thinking that they love it. And just before he's about to pull it out, they are just as enraged as everybody else in the town is. And Bart realizes quickly the mistake that he made. And that's something that the shows like The Simpsons does very well in the early seasons. Because like the whole idea was like the music in general. Like the music by Alf Clausen and Danny Elfman was clearly intended to be more dramatic than just your typical, your typical Simpsons style. Like your typical Simpsons music, like overall in general, like most interesting thing. But here's the thing that I wanted to talk about here, and this is something that I noticed watching this again. The most interesting thing about this particular episode is that it turns out there's an extended alternate ending to this episode that I found a couple years ago when I actually did a written review for this over on the main website. And the original DVD version of this episode has Bart giving this short speech about how he realizes what a mistake it was to do what he did, and then the townspeople forgive him. It's only a 30-second long scene in general, but let me see if I can go find it for you. Okay, I can't really find the clip online. I thought I would be able to go to Disney Plus because I thought it was still the original edited version on there, but I'd have to go back to watch the FXX episode broadcast of it. But basically, they cut it down to 30 seconds long. Like I said, he's basically giving a short speech realizing what a mistake it was, and then the townspeople forgive him. But there's actually an alternative version of this where he gives a much longer speech at just over a minute long. And here's that clip right here. I'm going to let you listen to it now. Listen to this.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, that's my story. And if you still want to tear apart this young Sunday school student as he stands on the brink of salvation, I await your wrath.
Now, that's where the episode actually ends. That's where it actually ends before everybody realizes that they're not mad anymore, and the townspeople all of a sudden turn around and say, like, hey, I'm not mad anymore. And so he puts the thing back on, and there's actually an added line in AR where I think in post production, where Homer basically tells them, you know, mob people aren't usually this kind. So that's where the episode usually ends it on the rebroadcast, especially the one on FXX. But this is the alternate version of it, the extended version of it. So listen to this.
But I'd like to add one thing. It wasn't until I removed the head of Jebediah Springfield that we realized we were taking our heritage for granted. That was a crime, too. One I think we are all guilty of.
It's got us there.
And I know that I'll always feel an inner shame far greater than any punishment you could dish out. Far, far greater. Far, 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 far greater.
See, they add that in there, and the interesting thing about that is, I don't know why they took it out, honestly. And to tell you the truth, like I said before, the longer speech actually is much better than the one they show on the DVD. So why would it get cut from the original episode? And, you know, honestly, my feeling is that they cut that because of the fact that they wanted to add more commercials into this. And, you know, nowadays, like, usually the typical half-hour show is 22 minutes of a show, 8 minutes worth of commercials. And sometimes they cut that down to, like, 21 minutes, 20 minutes. But my guess is that the network asked them to cut it down for credits, even though this was back when commercials didn't keep showing up every 5 minutes, meaning that there'd be more time for the show itself than the actual commercials. And basically what I'm trying to say is that commercials take up too much time of the damn show. Like, I remember back when Whitney Houston died, they played The Bodyguard on TV, a movie that's just a little over 2 hours long, and it's in a 3-hour block, so there's basically a movie that could have ended in 2.5 hours. That's 59 minutes worth of commercials. That's basically an entire episode of a TV show. Like, you can go watch a show on Netflix for the same amount of time that they have the commercials on there. It's just like, and the reasoning, I don't know why they decided not to keep this in here. Like, keep this segment in here. Like, and it makes a lot of good points to it. I think a lot of people would agree. It makes a lot of points of why this version should have been kept in there. So basically, what it is that Bart is trying to shift some blame to the crowd, and then winning them over was actually good, cynically sweet, and the bells are kind of a bit much, and the revised ending, more directly admitting it was unrealistic, I think works better. And I'm reading this off of a YouTube comic, so I think I make a good point here. And I see right here, the DVD commentary alludes to the fact that a change was made at the last minute, and that a large amount of fiddling was done in the first season between the initial and subsequent broadcast. They didn't give an explanation as to why the ending of this one was changed. Perhaps the version we frequently see was thought to be more in spirit with The Simpsons, hence why the original ending is rather seen. It should have been included as a bonus feature, though. The bells were a nice touch, but it doesn't feel Simpsons. Yeah, they have bells that I'll show that in a minute, but they have bells in here that's kind of pointless overall when you really think about it. Yeah, so they basically said that they made changes over the course of the rebroadcast that they did, so let me go ahead and show you the rest of the clip I'm talking about here, and then they'll talk about the bells that show up in here.
Somehow I don't feel like killing anymore.
Neither do I.
Forgive me, sir.
No problem, Bart. It's glorious. It's beautiful. I love you, Smithers. Feeling is more than neutral, sir.
Yeah, it feels like something you would see at the end of It's a Wonderful Life, or one of those or like the end of a Disney movie when the princess finally marries her Prince Charming and you hear the wedding bells going off. Like, it feels very schmaltzy, I'm not gonna lie. It just feels like something that is just kind of like, there was no real reason to add that into that version of that. So, in a way, I'm glad it's kind of cut down, at least on that part here. But the lesson itself isn't bad per se. Like, I really do think that lesson there, I think, works a lot better than it does in the regular cut, where it just cuts down after 30 seconds. But then again, that's just my personal take on it. But I thought they did a pretty good job with it. I thought there was a lot about it that really, they handled it very well. I thought it had a good message to it, and it was a really good episode. It was a really good episode that no real reason I wanted to talk about it except for that alternate ending that I thought was pretty interesting. That I thought it worked a lot better than the actual ending did. So we got one more thing to cover here, so let's go ahead and get to it. So it's hard to believe that Wheel of Fortune has been on the air now for almost 50 years. It was January 6, 1975, when this show first premiered, with Chuck Woolery as the host, Susan Stafford, and the show looks very different than it does nowadays, which is easy to say because the show's been on for so damn long. But I was going through some old videos. I wanted to watch some old school game shows. I like watching a lot of old game shows. Like, I grew up in the Game Show Network era. Like, when Game Show Network was all about a number of different game shows and not just the same 6 shows they play now on the Game Show Network now. Like, all the different classic game shows like the Match Game, Family Feud, The Price is Right, Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune, Pyramid, Pressure Luck, all these classic game shows. Ones I used to watch on the USA Network when they had game shows on there, Scrabble. Like, I love going back to the 70s and 80s and watching those game shows on YouTube. Like, there's a whole bunch of them all over the place. And so, going back to Wheel of Fortune, there was a show that is before Wheel of Fortune became the Wheel of Fortune that we know it as today. It was the first. There was a time back in 1973 when Wheel of Fortune did not look like the show that it eventually became. There was a show that is their first attempt. Merv Griffin, the creator of the show, his first attempt to create Wheel of Fortune was the show in 1973 called Shoppers Bazaar, and it has a lot of elements of what Wheel of Fortune has to it, but there are certainly a lot of things about it that are very, very interesting about it. And I've got the episode here, so I'm going to spend some time here talk about some of the more weirder moments of the show here. So let's go ahead and take a look at it, and let's go from there.
Today, our first shopper, Marilyn Jensen, is playing for this handmade Indian squash blossom necklace. This fabulous collection of vintage wines and an assortment of cheeses from around the world.
Now, if you listen very closely, you can actually hear the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang theme song in there. I guess this is like temp music that they had, because there was another pilot that they had on here, Pandemonium, which uses the Superman theme as the temp music for that. So I guess they used that before they actually come up with the theme song here. But the basic beginning here is that you have 3 contestants. They're walking around this area, kind of like an antique shop in a way, where you see like all these different things that you can get and you can win. And those are the things that they'll be playing for in the game to come. Most people forget that Wheel of Fortune, for the longest time, had these elements where you win as many prizes as you can by you solve the puzzle, and then you get to spend your money on these different prizes. Like, you could win vacations, you could win a car, you could win like stuff for your home, like all these different things. They stopped doing that fairly late into the 1980s, and it became all about winning the money, and it's something I kind of miss, and we'll eventually get to that as we continue on here, because there's some stuff I want to bring up with that, but let's keep going.
Plus, this beautiful self-defrosting double-door refrigerator freezer. And for her most elegant selection, Marilyn has chosen this sterling silver tea service, 60 pieces of crystal, and a distinctive collection of gourmet china, all from Tiffany's. Marilyn, today you are playing for a grand total of $5,400. Marilyn, stop the wheel.
Stop!
Marilyn, for $100, give me a letter. We're looking for a famous person, place, or thing in our puzzle.
F.
And there is an S. There are 2 S's for $200.
So you basically hear there, that's Chuck Woolery, who of course would later go on to host the first version of Wheel of Fortune when the show actually became Wheel of Fortune. Basically, you hear her telling the contestant to stop the wheel, and you see this wheel that's not the Wheel of Fortune wheel. It looks like a wheel you would see at a carnival, and the wheel itself is very odd in general. Like, you have this, it's basically a glittery stand-up wheel that has no special spaces on it. Like, it doesn't have the bankrupt on there, but there is a lose a turn. There is actually a thing for a free vowel, which is basically a precursor to the free play spin that space that they have on there. There's actually a space for $0, but I guess you could still pick a clue on there. There's a buy a vowel, which continued on into the other pilots they've done, and I'm glad they got rid of that, because if you didn't have the money to do it, because vowels are still $250, so I don't know what would have happened if somebody had to land on that and they had no idea what to do at that point. Like, did they lose their turn or what? They don't really explain what happens there. But you have the free spin space, you have a lose a turn, and it's the only way you can actually lose your turn on that on the show. They have this thing called a Your Own Clue, where they have a telephone right in the middle of this table that everyone's next to. You pick up the phone and somebody's telling you, we're looking for a person, or we're looking for a thing. Like, somebody's literally telling you what the category of the thing is on here. And the first puzzle, by the way, is Henry Kissinger. That's the answer to the first question on here. So, and the board itself looks pretty cheap. Like, it's literal. Like, you see the Wheel of Fortune the Wheel of Fortune puzzle board, like with the flashy televisions on there and the touch screens where Vanna can press the button and the letter shows up. This thing literally looks like something you would see in a high school version of Wheel of Fortune. Like someone dragged this from the chalkboard, took it out of the closet and said, "We're gonna play Wheel of Fortune today, kids." And the thing literally looks like a board that you would see is in a high school version of Wheel of Fortune. Like you remove the numbers, they remove the numbers individually. Like they take the they're kind of shaped like Post-it notes, kind of. They move those up, and then that's where they reveal the letters. And basically, what you had to do on this show was that you had to win as much money as you can to get these specific prizes that you wanted to get. So, let me see if I can get a good look at what these prizes they were going for here.
Good luck to you, and it's nice to have you with us. And Maureen Thompson, you're from California. I understand you're married, Maureen, in order to take them home. All of you.
Yes,
Okay. All right, now, ladies, remember, you must earn enough money to pay for your gifts and solve a puzzle in order to take them home.
So not only did you have to earn the money to grab the stuff, you had to solve the puzzle as well in order to do it. So basically, what they're going to show, I'm trying to get to the point where they show you the actual prize board that they have here. Let me see if I can get to it.
Puzzles will be a famous person, place, or a thing. You may select any letter you wish or buy a vowel. Now, if you select a letter that does not appear in the puzzle, you lose your turn. Now, here's our accounting department, and they'll be keeping track of your...
Okay, so the accounting department. So, like I'm looking at the thing right here, and they basically have a thing where, like, one of the contestants has, like, a bunch of stuff on the bottom here. I can't really see it because the screen is not big enough for me to show you, but, let me see here. Give me 1 second. So, like, one of the contestants has a squash blossom necklace, and it's $950. Now, she has $950 from the letter she picked, but because she didn't solve the puzzle, she doesn't technically win those. But the person next to her, Dawn, has microwave oven and appliances for, I think that's $850, I'm not mistaken. I don't know, let me listen in.
On the board, Marilyn's got $950 for that squash blossom necklace, but she's got to solve the puzzle before she can take it home with her. Dawn has solved the puzzle. She needs another $350 before the microwave oven.
Okay, so she needs another $350 from a puzzle to win the microwave oven and appliances. And he also has twin motorcycles in the second one for $1,400. And then Marilyn has an antique writing desk for $800. She's got $400. However, she has to solve a puzzle in order to win that money. And she also has Gucci luggage at $1,300, I believe. So it's a very complicated game, and it's more complicated than I think than it would eventually become. But keep in mind, it's the first Wheel of Fortune game ever played, so naturally they're going to have some bumps and there's going to be a lot of bumps and bruises going forward. Like, there's a lot of things that they have to work on here, and it's interesting when they did the next two pilots for this that they did not bring Chuck Woolery back for the next two pilots they did. They actually brought in somebody else, in Ed Burns, from 77 Sunset Strip, and I've got some footage from those pilots right here, so let's go ahead and take a look at those.
Thank you, and welcome to Wheel of Fortune. Now I would like to introduce our hostess, the lovely Susan Stafford.
And you can see why this guy was not set to be the host of Wheel of Fortune, because he talks way too loud. He's just like, "Hello, everybody. Now let me introduce you to Susan Stafford here." And, like, he does that over the course of the entire show. Like, he's a little too eccentric, a little too... I think I remember hearing that the differences between, like, Ed Burns apparently was completely wasted while working on this, and there's a difference between being tipsy and taking your job seriously and being completely wasted and unprofessional, and that's exactly what happened here, I guess, because yeah, like, this guy was clearly on something, because he was, like, loud screaming, he was, like, very rambunctious, all that type of stuff. Like, you could tell that this guy had something before he went on stage here. But yeah, like it gets pretty insane and weird. But like I said before, they even include the buy a vowel thing on this wheel that they have here. I'm further into the episode here, so let me see if I can show it to you. Not that I could show it to you, but I'll show you when it actually shows up here. It'll probably be in the companion video that I do here coming up later in the week. But let's keep going.
Okay, there was Roseanne, you have $300. Don't land on bankrupt. So far...
Yeah, there's a section there called Buy a Vowel, and they've never explained what would have happened if someone landed on a Buy a Vowel. I guess you'd have no choice but to buy a vowel, but if you don't have the $250, you're kind of screwed out of luck. I guess you lose your turn, maybe? Like, it's something that I never understood why they kept that in these pilots to come, but eventually they fixed out all the bugs and all that, and eventually Wheel of Fortune became what Wheel of Fortune eventually became. Like, we know what Wheel of Fortune now is, and certainly is not different. It's certainly much different than it was when it first began, but it's still a fun show, and I don't know. Like, I wanted to bring that up because I thought it was pretty interesting how that show is, how Wheel of Fortune almost was completely different than what it eventually became, and yeah, it was an interesting time period for that, no doubt about that. So anyway, with that said, let's go ahead and wrap our show up by talking about some recommendations. So usually with the recommendations, I usually go for the newest releases to come out on Blu-ray, 4K, and also streaming new releases. Anything that I see on streaming in the last couple of days or something that's coming up that I really want to recommend people check out. This week in particular, I have 3 things in particular on Blu-ray that come out this week that, that I want to bring up. One of the big new release this week is going to be Kenneth Branagh's A Haunting in Venice, which is the 3rd film of the Hercule Poirot series that follows after Murder on the Orient Express and Death on the Nile, which I really enjoyed. Did not get the best reception at the box office. It actually didn't do too well overall, but I thought it was honestly better than Death on the Nile was. I still think Murder on the Orient Express is still the best of the ones that Kenneth Branagh has made with those Hercule Poirot movies. You can tell he puts his heart and soul into this. He does. It's really amazing to see the different tones these movies take, because Murder on the Orient Express definitely has a feel of wintertime, a little bit of Snowpiercer, a little bit of Runaway Train in that one. Death on the Nile takes place obviously in Egypt, in the Nile, and it's more like this one, A Haunting in Venice, feels more like a horror movie, but done very well. Like, I think it's a very well-made film, and I really hope people rediscover this movie now that it's coming out on Blu-ray. WandaVision, the Disney Plus show, is coming out on Blu-ray as well. The complete series of that comes out this week. And one of my all-time favorite movies is getting a nice 4K steelbook coming its way. The Naked Gun, celebrating its 35th anniversary this year. There's a brand new steelbook set coming out. And it's one of my favorite movies of all time. One of my favorite comedies of all time. Very much high up there, too. It's like maybe right up there in the top 5, maybe, if not top 10, easily. But Leslie Nielsen's fantastic in the movie. Absolutely hilarious stuff. Amazing, amazing film. I love it. I love that series to death. It's one of my favorite comedies of all time. Can't recommend it enough. So, those are my recommendations for the week. And with that said, that's going to wrap this one up. So, thank you guys for checking out this special free preview. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you like it enough to go over to our other channel to check out the videos that we have on there. I have trailer reactions for over there. I moved that over there over the summertime. I do other things, like I do update videos in case I misinterpret some information. And new episodes will be posted Sunday nights at midnight, sometimes Monday morning if necessary. But they're up every week, so if you want to go check out some more of these videos, go check it out over on the other channel. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. And I want to thank all you guys for watching this special free preview episode. We're going to do another one of these is around Christmas time. I have one I'm planning on doing for Christmas Eve, so definitely be on the lookout for that one. I'll have more details on that in the weeks to come. But like I said, thank you so much for watching our free preview episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it's enough to make you want to go check out the other channel. If you like what you see, hit the like button here. Check out some of the other videos we've done over on the other channel. And I will see you guys next time. So thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. And until then, we are out.